I've talked about the concept of ESG generally, and the fact that it looks at other metrics that go beyond just profit making, which is what shareholders would typically want to see. So G stands for governance, and it's usually often overlooked because currently what you hear much more prominent in out there is environment. Ensure that your activity is environmentally friendly, climate change, and the likes. That is important. We also have the social aspect, talking about your people, your community, and how you impact them. That's also important. But governance, though least talked about, or is very fundamental in achieving both the environmental and the social goals. And why is it so? Because it's the systems that you put in place, the people that are that you have who are implementing these systems, that will determine the extent to which you can actually achieve those environmental goals. So one of the core objectives of governance is assignment of roles and responsibilities, so that everyone is clear as to what they need to do. And although our focus for this presentation is shareholders agreement, but it's also important to note that you can actually build in governance in every aspect of your project, even for your EPC contract, for instance. The extent to which you have clarity of rules will also determine the extent to which your project can be efficiently undertaken, particularly even with respect to risk allocation. You need to clearly state in your EPC contract, for instance, who bears what, who does what, right, and who is responsible for what. And it helps with the overall management of the project, and you also know exactly to hold responsible if something goes wrong. So essentially, governance allows for clear distinction of roles, responsibilities, ensuring that project sponsors and contractors are held accountable for their actions. Like I said, it's nobody, there's no blame game here. I've heard of this adage where someone said, when you ask two people to feed a goat, the goat to go hungry, right? Because one person expects the other person to do it, and the other, and vice versa. You have a clear distinction of roles, clear separation of roles, and everyone understands what they're meant to do. You avoid the risk of some action, some aspect of the project not being executed. And that's also very important in setting up your teams, right? Your project management teams. Let there be clear job descriptions for every person, what they're meant to do, their reporting lines, and how they are made, the frequency of reporting. And all of these just help to eliminate the risk of some aspect of the project going down, or something happening, and you as a project sponsor, you're unable to have a clear view of what is going on at the back end, right? So, and secondly, and each of feed into the other, it improves effectiveness and efficiency. It allows for better resource allocation, right? So when you understand the different aspects of your project and the different persons handling it, right, it enables you as a project sponsor to know how to allocate your resources efficiently, right? And then you're putting in money where the real value will be obtained. And then it also helps you know at what point that aspect of the project is no longer efficient. So when you have a governance system, for instance, where you have a power plant, for instance, then you have a team that is responsible for probably managing the gas supply and to the power plant, and then you have another team that's in charge of handling the tariff aspect of the project, and then you also have another team for managing the customers. I mean, just an example. Now, when you have these clear teams and they report to you consistently, one of the things that does is that you are able to have a fair assessment of what aspect of the project require more funding, what aspect of the project requires much better training, if it's the staff that require more training, or to improve the efficiency of any aspect of the project, so that no aspect of the project is suffering, and then eventually impact on the entire project as a whole. So it helps you improve efficiency and also help you better allocate your scarce resources. So building stakeholder confidence, this is very, very important, right? I've been in a scenario where trying to advise on a client, and then they had reached out to a potential investor, and the investor had asked for the key core members of the company, shareholders and directors. And after looking at that, they were like, well, your members of your team do not appear to have the requisite skill to execute this project. And that became an issue for them, and they had to go back, begin to source for talent, and then eventually then came back. So it's important to pay attention to this. But and again, just to mention this, in structuring your governance framework for your project or for your company, you also need to pay attention to the kind of vendors you're looking to approach, if that's your objective, or the kind of agency or government or your counterparty, essentially your stakeholders, because that would also inform how you structure